On 24th of February 2022, for the first time in history, a military conflict began on the territory of the country with large nuclear facilities. The Russian aggression against Ukraine has posed a serious challenges to the international community, unprecedented in the history of nuclear energy. One of the goals of Russia at the first stage of the invasion was to siege Ukrainian nuclear power plants. Russians managed to siege Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant, the largest in Europe, and Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant, which is undergoing decommissioning. In doing so, Russians ignored the fundamental principles of nuclear safety. Thus, during the storming of Zaporizhzhia NPP, the Russians opened fire from tanks and artillery, as a result of which the plant's premises caught fire. These actions were accompanied by the placement of military equipment and contingents on the territory of the nuclear power stations, and holding station personnel hostage, which is a direct and brutal violation of the international nuclear safety principles. In early March, the International Atomic Energy Agency Director General Rafael Grossi noted that it is the Russian military that controls the management of the plant and that such a way of operating the nuclear power plant is dangerous. Official Kiev has consistently appealed to the International Atomic Energy Agency to take measures to prevent Russian troops from entering the 30-kilometer zone around Ukraine's nuclear power plants. However, the agency managed to take the first practical step in this direction only at the end of August, when the mission of the organization visited the occupied Zaporizhzhia NPP. In fact, this became possible due to the Kremlin's desire to use the authority of the International Atomic Energy Agency for propaganda purposes, to hold Ukraine responsible for the shelling of the plant. In this way, Russia tried to legitimize the presence of its military at Zaporizhzhia NPP. In the final report of the International Atomic Energy Agency, the Kremlin did not receive what it expected, namely unilateral accusations of Ukraine for shelling the territory of the station. The month that has passed since the report was published has shown Russia's complete disregard for the agency recommendations. On contrary, the pressure on the plant's personnel has intensified, as evidenced by the abduction and forced deportation of Zaporizhian NPP Director General Igor Murashov. There are also regular reports of Zaporizhian NPP employees being forced to sign contracts with Rosatom, Russian State Atomic Energy Corporation. In early October, the Russian president ordered to take the federal ownership of the nuclear power plant. The relevant decree stems from the intention to annex the Zaporizhzhia region of Ukraine. Thus, Russia does not hide its plans to steal the nuclear power plant from the owner state, contrary to all norms of international law. By the way, missile attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, which intensified during October, is just a continuation of the energy blackmail tactics. But how Russia can be punished for such crimes? At first, let's clarify the prospects of Russia's exclusion from the International Atomic Energy Agency. The statute of the agency does not clearly formulate the grounds for excluding Russia or limiting its powers. Article 19 of the document states, a member which has persistently violated the provisions of this statute may be suspended from the exercise of the privileges and rights of membership by the General Conference, acting by two-thirds majority of the members present and voting upon recommendation by Board of Governors. Russia, being one of the 25 countries that are members of the Board of Governors, will apparently block the recommendation that could enable a vote on its status. Other members of this governing body include countries that maintain neutrality in the international arena and have joint projects in nuclear energy with Russia, in particular China and India. Accordingly, we have to state that currently there is no possibility to use the statute to penalize Russia within the International Atomic Energy Agency. In the absence of a practical mechanism for excluding or limiting the powers of the Russian Federation within the International Atomic Energy Agency, there is a need for asymmetric actions to undermine the Kremlin's ability to pursue nuclear blackmail in the energy sector and punish it for occupation of Zaporizhzhia NPP and Chernobyl NPP, creation of nuclear safety risks, and attempts to interfere within the occupation of the energy system of Ukraine. The most effective response is to restrict Russia's capabilities in the field of nuclear lobbying in the international arena. The key instrument of the energy blackmail of Ukraine and its Western partners is the state corporation Rosatom. Rosatom state holding company manages more than 300 companies in Russia, which are involved in all stages of nuclear weapons and electricity production. about 20% of the total electricity production in Russia. The company holds leading positions in the world market of nuclear reactors and nuclear fuel. Increasing the export of nuclear technologies lies in the core of Rosatom's development strategy and generates considerable profits. According to the reports, in 2021, the corporation's revenues from foreign projects amounted to $8.9 billion. The participation of Rosatom specialists in the occupation of Zaporizhzhia NPP do not only contradicts international law, but also creates risks for the safety of the plant operation by Ukrainian personnel. Thus, since March, there is a legitimate basis for imposing sanctions against the Russian nuclear holding. But so far, this has not happened yet. To find out the possible ways to introduce restrictions against Rosatom and the feasibility of their application, it is important to consider the reasons for the invulnerability of Russia's nuclear energy to the sanctions policy of the West. Rosatom is an extremely important asset for the Putin's regime. Promoting the company's interests is one of the key activities of the Russian diplomacy. As for many years, the Russian peaceful atom has opened many doors of international politics for the Kremlin's ambitions. The long-term nature of contracts for the reactor construction and maintenance, NPP usually have a planned operation cycle of 60 years, combined with the strategic importance of nuclear power plants in the energy structure of the recipient country, creates conditions for strategic dependence on the services and technological base of Rosatom. In recent years, the Russian energy giant has been particularly active in strengthening its presence abroad. As of today, the company exports nuclear power plants to Bangladesh, Belarus, Egypt, India, Iran, China, Turkey, and Hungary. The further horizon of Russia's nuclear expansion is Africa. Nigeria, Ghana, Zambia, Morocco, and Rwanda have already expressed interest in Russia's services in the construction of nuclear power plants. In parallel, Russia gets the recipient country of nuclear technologies hooked on the credit needle. Russia has allocated a state loan of $25 billion to finance the Egyptian NPP, about $10 billion for the Paksh-2 NPP in Hungary, and up to $11 billion for the Rupur NPP in Bangladesh, and $5 billion for the construction of the Akuyu NPP in Turkey. After Russia invaded Ukraine, only the Finnish government terminated the contract with Rosatom for the construction of a nuclear power plant. Other countries which cooperate with Rosatom do not plan to revise approaches to the implementation of existing projects. The current situation once again shows that in addition to the contracts for the construction of strategic facilities in third countries, Russia gains a powerful lever of influence not only on the partner countries, but also on the policy of the regional organizations, where decisions are made by consensus. A striking example is the position of Hungary, which succeeded in excluding nuclear energy from the new EU sanctions package against Russia, as the new restrictions could harm the construction of the two power units at the Paksh-2 NPP. Aside from the export of reactors, Rosatom has a network of nuclear fuel importers, as the Russian and Soviet-designed power units are engined to be fueled by the Russian fuel company 12, which is part of Rosatom. Diversification of fuel nuclear supplies is in most cases an achievable goal, which is evidenced by an example of Ukraine. Nevertheless, the Ukrainian experience is quite unique for reactors designed in the Soviet Union or Russia. The obstacle is high cost of modernization and in some cases Russian lobbying. For example, in the EU alone, Rosatom operates Soviet-designed nuclear power plants in Bulgaria, Slovakia, Hungary, Finland, and the Czech Republic. As of today, only Bratislava and Prague announced plans to refuse from Russian nuclear fuel. Strong positions in uranium mining, Rosatom ranks second in terms of its production, about 15% of world market, enrichment, 36% of the world market, and fuel production, 17% of the world market, also allows the holding to avoid sanctions. The fact is that due to the high cost, uranium production in the United States is frozen, and American energy companies are lobbying the Biden administration not to impose sanctions against uranium supplies from Russia. Trying to eliminate dependence on Russian uranium exports, the White House initiated before the Congress the allocation of additional funding to restart its own uranium enrichment facilities and increase the production of ready fuel for nuclear power plants. However, there is currently no clarity on the market about the timing of these initiatives. The participation of Rosatom specialists in attempts to establish technological control over Zaporizhzhia NPP makes Rosatom a participant of aggression against Ukraine. Rosatom maintains the key instrument of Kremlin's nuclear blackmail strategy. Thanks to nuclear energy, the Kremlin continues to maintain a network of loyal third world countries, which undermines the ability of international organizations to effectively respond to security challenges. An effective response to Moscow's use of nuclear energy for blackmail purposes is to limit the possibility of forming a system of loyalty based on the dependence of countries on Russian nuclear technologies and specialists in the maintenance of nuclear facilities. According to the engineering experts, at the first stage, it is worth considering efforts on cutting down technological cooperation with Rosatom in all possible areas, including import of nuclear fuel. Initiatives on cancellation of participation in scientific and technological exchange programs, joint research and international research projects, boycott of international conferences on nuclear energy and safety organized by Rosatom are also very important. Another important step is removal of Russian representatives from the key positions they hold in international atomic energy agency bodies. The second stage involves the development of comprehensive strategy for the complete elimination of dependence on Rosatom products in the Western countries. At the same time, it is worth working with governments that still continue to cooperate with Rosatom. When choosing a partnership with Russia in the field of nuclear energy, countries should pay more attention to security issues and avoid geopolitical dependence on Moscow. Curtailment of technological cooperation with Rosatom in all possible spheres, including import of nuclear fuel, should become one of the main directions of Western countries' policy in the field of nuclear safety. Sanctions against Rosatom can not only deal a painful blow to the technological base of the Russian nuclear power industry, but also neutralize the Kremlin's attempts to use the state holding to pursue its geopolitical ambitions.
Subscribe here to receive more videos from the new Geopolitics Research Network.